Hey knitters, welcome back to our Knits and Purls episode. Are we on 5 now? I think so, which is really crazy thinking when I started this channel, a month or two ago. I didn't expect to do this weekly, and if I had told myself that I was going to do this weekly at the time, I think I never would have expected to stick with it this long. So thanks for coming back. If you are new to this channel, welcome. My name is Aro of Aro Knits and Purls. I'm really just here to talk to you about knitting. That's all my channel is. Sometimes I'll do a true crime knit night, but this is not one of those. There's no talk about murder today. So if you are a return visitor, again, welcome. I know you guys know I talked about this last episode, but I am mentally pretty exhausted. I just woke up from a nap. On the weekends, I've been getting like 11 hours of sleep, and not restful 11 hours of sleep. I'm like having nightmares still just because I'm so stressed with work. But hopefully this week things will calm down. And actually this past week was much better than the week before that. So hopefully I'll be able to catch up a lot with my knitting. My episodes usually go, I share with you guys the new stuff I got, then I show you guys what I've been working on, and then I talk about whatever today's topic is. In terms of new stuff, I don't have a lot. It's shocking, I know, but I actually haven't bought any yarn in the last week and a half, like no yarn. But I did realize I didn't show you guys a new mini set that came in, so that's what I'm gonna count as my new yarn. Here we have a mini set from Sunday Fiber Company. So Sunday Fiber Company is run by a lovely woman named Elise out in Canada. So if you are a Canadian watcher, viewer, I always mess that up. If you are a Canadian viewer, please support Elise, Sunday Fiber Company. She has a lot of bases, including a new linen base that she tried out, her last update. It's really great. I love Elise and I love her colors, and this mini set was a really great way for me to sample all of her colors in person, because part of the charm, you guys know, of buying indie yarn is that sometimes the picture is not exactly what you get in real life, and that's just because, for many reasons, the lighting when the dyer took the picture, any editing that happened, the screen resolution, brightness of my screen can change how yarn looks. So this was a really great way for me to see all the colors in person, and I'm going to use these minis for a Laurel pullover. It has kind of striped colorwork sections, so I'm really excited for me to get more of Elise's yarn. I have Creme Tangerine, one of her popular colorways, right here, so that's what that is. And then other new stuff, I didn't make this, my friend Megan made it. Megan of Kimchi & Co. on Instagram. She lives near Salt Lake, so we meet up pretty frequently, and she made me these lovely socks. And I never make myself socks because I don't make socks. You guys know I am a garment knitter. That's what I do. And she made these for me, and look how neat her stitches are. I'm really excited about these because I thought about it. These are the first time I've ever been gifted knits, which is pretty crazy because I've been knitting for 13 years, so I have friends who knit, so you'd think that I would have gotten more knit gifts. I think it's mainly because I only make garments, so people think I only ever want garments, but like, it was really nice. I have this being my first knit gift. It was really nice and special to receive something, and I love them. I wear them in the house, so that's why if you see me picking off dog hair, that's why, because I've already worn them in the house a few days in a row now. Megan and I have the same freakishly small sized feet, so she says it was easy to make, and I will take her word for it because I've only ever made socks once and I hated the construction, so I'm never gonna do it again. But yeah, they're really cute. Let's see. Okay, so that was the new stuff I got. Then I show you what I've been working on, and then we talk about the topic. I'm gonna do something a little different this time. I'm gonna combine what I've been working on to what I'm talking about. And what I'm talking about today, it's two prongs. One is test knitting, because you guys know that's the majority of what I knit these days. I do test knits. And then the other one is the word I'm going to use is productivity, but you guys know I don't like that word, because productivity to me is intrinsically linked with the idea of finishing being, you know, the most important thing, which it's not for me. Okay, but I'll go into that. When we talk about test knitting, what is test knitting? So test knitting is when a designer already has a design, they have knit it themselves, or, you know, they have someone knit it, there is a sample, and they give you a copy of the pattern for free. Test knits are free to participate in. If somebody asks you to pay to be in a test knit, that's something different. It's weird. But anyway, test knitting, you get a free copy of the pattern before release. There may be errors in the pattern. Your job as a test knitter is to give feedback. One, a lot of designers want to know, how much yarn did you use? 2, were the instructions clear and helpful? 3, were there any errors in the pattern? Obviously, errors in the pattern, they expect you to, well, not expect. It's better to send them as you're working. That way, other test knitters get them and the designer can update the pattern. But obviously, they don't expect you to have the yardage estimates until you're done. Anyway, so those are the general things that people are looking for in a test knit. That's why test knits are important pre-release, so that you can give feedback about those things. I sign up for a lot of test knits. I started late 2018, I want to say, and 2019, 2020 have pretty much, I've only done test knits. If I think about all this, whatever sweaters I have done that were not dedicated to test knits, probably in the last 3 years, there have been probably 5 sweaters not related to test knits. So you can see that that's clearly, like, I knit a lot, and that's a very small percentage of what I knit these days. So why do I like to test knit? One, I talked about this last time, but I am a person who thrives on deadlines. I like the structure it gives me, and it allows me to think in a way of budgeting my time that I normally can't do in a vacuum without a deadline. Number 2, it's dumb, but the exclusivity of it, the idea that I'm one of the first few people that's knitting this pattern before release. Like, I like being part of that. Number 3, also, I really like to share what I'm working on. Obviously, I like to share what I'm working on because I'm doing this podcast series thing. So when I share pictures related to the test knit, I like to think of people in the community getting more and more excited for these releases. So that's one of the major reasons that I'm drawn to test knitting. Every test knitter I expect will have both different and similar answers. Just because it's the way the structure is built, I imagine it draws people who like deadlines. Because if you hate deadlines, like all deadlines, then you're probably not well suited for a test knit, because that's a very important part of it. But anyway, so I get asked very frequently by designers and friends, or just other knitters, what makes me sign up for a test knit? What things do I look for? And obviously they will vary depending on the design, depending on my mood, the time of year even. But generally speaking, I look at 4 factors. Will I wear it? Can I meet the deadline? Do I have the yarn? And is there something interesting about the pattern? So number 1, will I wear it? It's obviously super important to me whether or not I'll wear something, because I am a garment knitter. I knit stuff to wear. That's the functionality of it. So it matters to me that the design is something that I can imagine myself in. Because if it's completely out there, like I would never put that on in my life, then I'm not going to make that, because why would I dedicate that time to it? Number 2, can I meet the deadline? Now, my mindset on this was very, very different from when I first started test knitting to now. Because when I first started test knitting, I wasn't sure that I could meet a deadline. That part really, really scared me as a knitter, because before test knits, I would cast on impulses. And if I reached a point on a sweater that I wasn't as excited about, for example, sleeves, or maybe just a really aggressive color work section, I would be like, I don't want to work on that, and I'd do something else. So I didn't know that I was considered a fast knitter, because to me, it felt like I never finished anything. so when I signed up for my first really challenging test knit in terms of time frame, that's when I realized like, oh, I can actually knit pretty fast. So that was very liberating for me at the time to realize. And also it was a very slippery slope, because that's where I've ended up where I am now, where I sign up for maybe 3 or 4 test knits a month, and it's a lot. Pardon me. So that's number 2, can I meet the deadline? And obviously you have to be honest with yourself. You have to know yourself as a knitter. If you are a slow knitter and you know that for a fact, maybe it's not a good idea for you to sign up for the Jen Steinglass test knit, because Jen, Knit Love Wool, she only does 3-week time frame test knit, which if you're a very slow knitter is going to be very difficult for you to reach. There are many, many designers out there who do test knits as long as 3 months. And 3 months is much more doable for pretty much everybody, I think. So know yourself as a knitter and be honest with whether or not you can meet the deadlines. Of course, I could also use that advice, because when I sign up for so many test knits, obviously they eat each other's time, you know? So do as I say, not as I do on that one. 3, do I have the yarn? Now this is very important for me these days, because you guys can see I'm a little bit of a yarn hoarder. The shelf behind me is actually 9 squares. And then off camera, I have 8 more squares of yarn. And those squares, they're caked in there. So they can fit a lot more. So when I say that the yarn behind me is less than half of my stash, I really mean like it's less than half my stash. I have a lot. I hoard a lot. Yeah. So in a vacuum, yes, I do have the yarn, but a lot of the yarn that I have already imagined patterns for it. So they are, in my mind, dedicated. But perhaps plans can change. Like this one, the reason I signed up for this, and I showed you guys this last time, Quadratus, I cast on just last week, finally finished the body today, and I'll do the sleeves quickly. But one of the major reasons I did this was, well, it hit all my criteria. I'll go through them. 1, will I wear it? Yes, it's very cute. I like the colorwork design. Number 2, can I make the deadline? This is due at the end of June, and I only need the sleeves, which sleeves can take me 2 days. So yeah, I can make it. And do I have the yarn? So this is in worsted weight. And the yarn that I got, this is Stress Knits yarn, and I got the pre-order set of Stress Knit Stacey Elstone. She did a pre-order of this sweater quantity for her throwback sweater. If you guys remember Andrea Mowry's throwback sweater, when it was released, that's when Stacey did this set. And I bought it, and I probably realized I'm not going to make a throwback sweater. I just have this beautiful worsted weight yarn, and since Quadratus called for worsted weight yarn, I decided to do it. Quadratus actually calls for more contrast colors than this, but I just decided to use the ones that I had that were all Stacey's colors, Stress Knits, and I'm happy with it. So it definitely fit the do I have the yarn. And it does fit category 4, which is there something interesting about the pattern? Because while I do have a lot of color work, most of my color work is top down yoke. I don't have a lot that are, you know, around the body, only around the body, and a little bit on the cuffs. The sleeves will have a little bit color work as well. So that was another interesting point for me. So it made sense for me to sign up for the Quadratus. And I'm glad I got to show that to you guys, because I felt like I haven't shown you guys anything new lately. So yeah, those are the 4 factors. Number 4, is there something interesting about the pattern? Now, this is interesting not just in terms of the aesthetic of how it looks knitted up, because obviously that's number 1. It goes into, is there something interesting about the construction? Is there something interesting about the design? Another example I can show you guys is, this is the Petal Party crop by Samantha Guerin. This is in test knit right now. It uses 2 skeins of fingering weight. I have many 2 skeins of fingering weight that don't have set aside projects for them, so I was excited to use it up. But also, It's obviously hard to tell now because I just cast this on yesterday, but this is going to be top down. After you do the front portion and the back portion to the same length around sleeve separation, then it will be combined and joined in the round to work the body. But it requires you to seam the shoulders and then pick up for the little hem around the sleeve. I don't do a lot of this construction. I have some, but not a lot. My main bread and butter in terms of knitting patterns, if you can tell from my sweaters from 2020, I did a lot of top-down yokes. I was burnt out at the end of last year with top-down yokes. So because this is a different construction, I decided that I would do this. Also, number 4, the factor number 4 can be really good if you're trying to work on something that you know you want to work on. For example, if you are not confident in stranded colorwork and you see a stranded colorwork pattern, like heck yeah, sign up for that test knit, because when you're part of a test knit, one of the best parts of it is you get into chat rooms or discussion boards or whatever resources the designer has, and you get access to those resources and can ask people questions, and it gives you a chance to improve on those skills. So it's really good to get out of your comfort zone and learn something new as well, and that's part of factor number 4. So where do you sign up for test knits is a question that I get a lot. I first started signing up for test knits when I followed I followed the hashtags. It was hashtag test knitters needed and hashtag test knitting call. I stopped following those after I realized I was completely addicted to test knits and I couldn't trust myself anymore. I can't say no to a good test knit. I really can't. But anyway, so if you follow those are a really good way to keep a pulse on what designs are coming out, what designs need testers. I will say those hashtags aren't generally used by designers who have a really strong following already, because their problem is usually that they have too many people wanting to test knit for them rather than they need more. So if you aren't following designers, actively seek out designer accounts. I follow many designers, and that's how I find out about test knits these days. It's mainly Instagram posts and Instagram stories of designers I follow. It used to be that Ravelry was a really great resource if you wanted to find test knits, but because many designers are transitioning away from Ravelry after the accessibility issue became bigger, Ravelry just isn't the hub of test knitting that it used to be. Another really great resource I want to recommend is Yarnpon Com. This isn't sponsored or anything. I'm not affiliated with them. I am a user. It is free to set up a knitter account, but if you are a designer, you have to pay a small amount. I don't know what it is, don't ask me. So the idea is on Yarnpon, you can put out test knit calls. It's like a straight up discussion board. You can post pictures and people can apply. There's you can customize your application for a test knit, and it's really handy because it doesn't get into kind of the frenzy of Instagram test knit calls, because if you aren't aware, on Instagram test knit calls, they fill up really fast, especially if you're trying to look for the more popular designers. I will say, if you're brand new to test knitting, chances are you won't be picked for a very big designer at first, because you kind of want a few notches in your belt. They want to know for sure that you're going to be able to make their deadline, and it helps if you have, if you build up your resume essentially. So the designers on Yarnpon are generally smaller, but that doesn't mean they're not good. Like, the designs are great that I found on Yarnpon. I've had a lot of fun working on test knits. Actually, I found that the Yarnpon discussion boards are better than Ravelry discussion boards. It's just easier. Also, you don't have to pay that stupid $5 thing to upload pictures from your phone, whatever. Anyway, I've had a lot of fun with Yarnpon. I found some really great designs, including quadratas. This one was a Yarnpon post. So that's a really great resource. I highly recommend it, and I hope more designers will start posting on there, just because it's a lot easier to keep track of test knits when you have a Yarnpon set up. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I didn't talk about this test knit, but yet. I will now. In terms of number 4, something interesting, something that I want to work on is baubles. Baubles started becoming really, really trendy in the last couple years, and I have resisted it like a lot because depending on the placement, they can look like nipples, and it looked really weird to me. And also, many baubles I've seen just don't look very nice. They don't look very neat. But when Rachel Knits Things, she posted her Bits and Baubles sweater, I knew I had to be part of it. She used a kind of brushed mohair yarn that was partially acrylic from Hobby. When I got on the test knit, I looked to order that same yarn, but they were sold out of many of the colors that I wanted to use. And so that would be against my number 3, do I have the yarn? So I was kind of upset about that. So I decided to raid my stash, and I found that I actually had these guys. So I wanted a rainbow sweater. I've wanted a rainbow sweater for a really long time, and I had these in my stash. These are the neon white tweed rainbow set from Black Squirrel Yarns. They're out in Berkeley, California, and they're amazing. Check out their online shop. But I was really lucky enough to have this already. I'm gonna hold it double because fingering weight held double, for those of you who don't know, is generally DK weight, depending on how tight you knit. So with a little bit of gauge checking magic, I'm going to make it worsted weight essentially, so I can replace the yarn. I'm very excited about that pattern. And the reason I brought up number 3, do I have the yarn? It's really important for me to use up my stash, but also if you are a relatively new knitter, even if you have no stash, you may be an old knitter who has no stash. I've heard it happen. It's a miracle, but I've heard it, you guys. If you don't have the yarn on hand, you have to do the calculation in your head. Okay, how much time is it going to take me to get the yarn? Because if you don't have a local yarn store next to you, or your local yarn store doesn't have what you need, then you're going to be out of luck. You need to buy online. And buying online is a whole other can of worms, because one, shipping these days in the pandemic, it can be a crapshoot. It can take a lot longer than things used to. Number 2, if the dyer you're using is indie, do they have it in stock, or are they going to have to dye to order? Because if they're dyeing to order, that can take weeks. So you have to be able to calculate that in terms of how much time you need to knit the actual garment. Some people are confident that they can knit quickly, like I am. I have done like Knit Love Wool patterns with 3-week turnaround. I've ordered dyed to order yarns before, and I trust that if I know that the dyer can get the yarn to me within 2 weeks, I know I'll be okay. But I know that's not everybody's situation. So that's why I only say, do I have the yarn is important, even if you're not me. So, okay. Since I think I talked about test knitting enough now. If there are more things I need to clarify, I will say them in other following episodes, I guess. But I wanted to get on the productivity issue real quick. Again, you guys know, and I've said it, I hate that word, because productivity is linked to like capitalist measure of like what you can produce. And as makers, I want to challenge that, because I am not a factory. I make things because I enjoy them. I'm not trying to make a quota. I'm not trying to hit a bottom line. I can set independent goals for myself. Like my goal this year is to knit 25 sweaters. I think I'm at like 14 or 15 like already. So I'm happy about that. But anyway, like it's not a quota that is being imposed by supply and demand. It's just me. It's a challenge that I set for myself. It is a personal process making. So that's why I hate the word productivity. It gets too focused on the finished product as being evidence, or like the only evidence of you as a maker. And that's not true. Like I said last episode, it's more important that I enjoy the process than I enjoy wearing the knit. Okay, so very clearly I want to make that very clear. But I do know that many knitters get frustrated when they feel themselves losing inspiration or feeling out of touch with the craft. And that can happen. It's natural to kind of ebb and flow in our interests. Like I told you guys last time when my grandfather died, I didn't knit for 2 months. Things happen. And whether it's something dramatic as a death in the family or something as natural as it's hot as hell outside and I don't want to hold yarn, things like that can happen. But I will share some tips and tricks about how I avoid that happening, minus the really dramatic events. Those, they just happen. Let yourself heal, okay? In terms of small tips and tricks for like summer or just generally, sleeves. So when I knit without test knits, you know, just willy-nilly cast on whenever I wanted, I definitely fell into the trap of sleeve island or second sleeve syndrome. I just would not finish things and there was no reason for it. I just didn't want to do it. And I cut down that impulse a lot once I invested in short circular needles. So these I think are a 9-inch or 12-inch. These are Addies. Then I also have interchangeable set. So this is the Shorties interchangeable set. It's available for purchase. Obviously there are some missing because they're in use. In a set, there are like 4 short cables. There are ones longer than this and another one as short as this, and different size tips, obviously, depending on how short you want the shorties. And this really, like the Addie and this, they changed the game for me, because when I didn't have to mess about with DPNs or magic loop, it really just made it sleeves as enjoyable as knitting a stockinette body for me, because it's just one circular thing. It goes and it goes, and I don't have to like be in a separate mindset of, okay, now I have to change the needle because it's a DPN, or now I need to, you know, mess with the cable because it's magic loop. None of that. It has made it much easier and much more enjoyable for me to do the sleeves. So now I don't feel second sleeve or even first sleeve island, whatever. I just enjoy the process. So if you haven't, shorties, like short circulars, are a really, really great tool to invest in, because it does cut down the waste of just sitting on a sweater that's unfinished because you don't want to do the sleeves. So that's the trick that I found. If it doesn't work for you, if you've tried it and it doesn't work, I'm sorry. It works for me. I can only talk about what I know. Tip number 2 is get a palette cleanser. And what I mean by palette cleanser is get a project, a simple project, something that's pretty much all stockinette that you can work on whenever and wherever the mood to knit strikes, and something that doesn't require a lot of effort. Because this is the one I'm going to show you. This is Helvolin. It's clearly just a stockinette raglan. I'm not even at the sleeve separation point yet. Eventually it will have color work right before the hem, but I'm not close to that yet. Yeah, and I carry this around whenever I know I'm going to be at a really long meeting, or if I know I'm going to be at the DMV or stuck in traffic, or if I'm going out to meet friends for like brunch or a picnic in the park like I was the other day. Like, I want to be able to talk with my friends, and I can do just a simple stockinette body while I'm doing other things. So it's really good to have something like this. And the reason why I say get a palette cleanser if you are losing your knitting mojo is because instead of thinking of it as knitting, think of it at that time as meditation. So what meditation is, and if you haven't tried meditating before, or if you think it's like lame and, you know, woo-woo, that's fine. I did a lot of yoga and I hated meditation. It was my least favorite part until the way meditation was explained to me. I still don't meditate, by the way, like true meditation I still don't do, but I do knitting meditation. The way it was explained to me was meditation works to relax people and, you know, does all those great things that everybody says meditation is great for. The reason it works is because part of your brain is fixated on something mundane and small, you know, repetition. It's good for the brain. Part of your brain can focus on that, while the rest of your mind can kind of flow away. And so you're both thinking and not thinking at the same time. And that's how I feel when like I really get into the rhythm of knitting. That's what it feels to me, like I am thinking but I am not thinking. And that's really what meditation, the benefits of meditation stem from. And if you have a simple palette cleanser like this, a stockinette project that you can work on without thinking about it, that's really the best thing for it. So that palette cleanser is an idea for me to shift the way I think about knitting. Instead of, oh, I'm gonna work on a really beautiful but complicated pattern, or, you know, beautiful but kind of involved shawl or something like that, even though I never do shawls. Why did I say shawl? Yeah, like, get something simple just for the sake of doing something. Just work on it. Or the other way that I found, if I'm having knitting mojo issues, is I'll cast on something for just on a whim for fun, or I'll cast on something really small that I know I can finish. Like sometimes I'll just cast on like a hat, and I'll finish a hat in a day, and I'll feel good about finishing, and that kind of gives me the motivation to keep trying other things. So the most important thing is don't lose patience with yourself. If you're losing interest in knitting, just say, right now I'm not as interested in knitting. It's okay to step away from the needles. So you won't die, you won't fall apart. You're allowed to have other interests, you're allowed to do other things. And even if you have no other interests at the time, like, don't beat yourself up because you're not making, is what I want to say. And then the last thing is, it's about I see this a lot of knitters are like, they kind of give up on the craft when it gets hot out. And we are very, very quickly approaching summer here, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And I have pretty much lived in places where it gets really hot in the summers. Like Austin was hot and humid. At least Salt Lake is just gonna be hot. But so the way that I combat the lack of wanting to feel wool in my hands is I switch fibers. Get summer fibers. There are many cheap cotton choices, and there are many beautiful cotton choices, like indie cotton choices as well. Like linen is a great fabric. What I'm wearing is linen. I posted a picture where I was at a picnic at the park the other day, and I'm wearing linen there. Linen is great. You can also find blends if you don't like the feel of 100% linen. There are linen blends which use merino. There are cotton blends which also use merino. Like, it's a really great option just to diversify, one, your wardrobe in terms of what you have in it, but also two, the summer fibers will really make a difference in how you feel when you're knitting. Because if you're sweating in your hand and it's hot out, yeah, that's a miserable experience. Don't put yourself through that. Invest in a cooler fiber, a summer fiber, and maybe you make a tank top and you'll feel great. So that's my tip on how to avoid some of the pitfalls of knitting, like when you're kind of falling out of love with knitting. And just, again, my overarching thing is be patient with yourself, because it's not, productivity is not the most important thing when we make. It's about the process, and productivity focuses on the product. Whereas as makers, we need to revel in the process. So remember that your experience making is the most important thing to you, and make sure you're fulfilled. If you as a knitter feel like test knitting will give you that fulfillment like it does for me, then right on, apply for test knits. I've given you guys some resources on how to do that, and I can't wait to see what you guys make. Please feel free to like tag me in posts and let me know, or comments, tag me in comments, I guess. Yeah, just let me know what you guys are working on. I really love to see everybody's knits. And thank you again for joining. I hope that you were able to learn at least something in this short video today. I feel like I didn't show you guys a lot of new stuff. Well, definitely more than last time. I'm just excited to be knitting again without a fire going on in my brain and my work. So yeah, thank you guys again. I hope you learned something. And next time we meet, I think I'll actually be talking about true crime. So if you are a non-true crime listener, sorry, but next week is for murder. And I will see you guys then. Okay. Bye, everybody.